On the Radio is brought to you by Zurich Insurance, the perfect place to catch up with all things Melbourne. If you enjoy this content and want more inside access from the team, make sure you visit the club website.
Wednesdays we go into the top office, and this week Melbourne President Glen Bartlett is with me. Glen, welcome to SEN.
Good morning, Gerard, and good morning to all your listeners.
How unsettled are things right now?
Oh, look, from March, Gerard, it's been a really challenging time, obviously, and that's become, I think, the new norm. It is challenging. Certainly, as a club, we put things in place very early on, and have really had an attitude of, we will embrace the challenge, and I know it's a bit of an old cliche, but we'll play where we're told to play and be ready to play anywhere, anytime, but that's not diminishing, obviously, some of the challenges with this.
Do you have any idea where that's going to be beyond this weekend?
No, not at this point. And whilst I should say the AFL, and I've been really proud of all of our people from our board, our exec, all of our staff, and the other clubs in the AFL. The approach with this has been very collaborative. A lot of discussions behind closed doors to really get these games played, but it is challenging. And if you worry about fairness or a really perfect fixture, you just got to forget about that. It's being ready for the next challenge and make sure we put our best foot forward.
You're a pretty good case study. So your round one game is played after the season has been announced as postponed. Round two goes as scheduled. Round three gets postponed, which compromises round four. Round five, you've got a new opponent. And round six, you're not going to be where you were fixtured to be. It's that's as far away from normal as it could possibly be.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's unprecedented. But, Gerard, we really need to focus on what we can control as a club, and we've really been hell-bent on that on and off the field. And off the field, the support from our commercial partners and our supporters has been unbelievable. And the way our people, the hardest thing about this, Gerard, has been the impact on our people at a whole lot of levels. Certainly the uncertainty and the financial impact is huge, but the real impact when you break things down to a micro level, every macro decision has an impact at a micro level. That's probably been the biggest challenge. I've been really proud of the way our people have embraced it and how they continue to embrace it.
It clearly compromises the football judgments. Does it make the football judgments borderline redundant?
In what sense?
I don't know how you can judge success and failure against such a backdrop.
The other side to that equation is each team's going to play each other, once. It's a different world, and the clubs and the teams that really embrace this and are agile and embrace the challenge will come through it. And I believe as a club on and off the field we'll come through this, stronger and in a strong position financially to rebound from COVID-19. Again, not diminishing the impact, but it is a different world. I absolutely acknowledge that. I think we've had some really tight games. There's still been some great footy played, but it is a different world. But the premiership's going to be the premiership, and I actually believe this talk about there being an asterisk is just nonsense. Against the premiership this year, whoever comes through and wins the 2020 premiership in probably the most unprecedented, difficult circumstances, just about of all time.
In the changes that you made around the football department and the thorough work you did at the end of the year, will you be able to tell, do you think, this year whether those changes have been successful or not?
Absolutely. I mean, our expectation in 2020, and I should say at the start, we set some guiding principles as a board to work through this for our crisis management team. And, one of them, we rolled out some club values at the start of the year and some expectations. And one of them is that we're not going to use COVID-19 as an excuse. So in driving excellence across the football club, we don't use COVID-19 as an excuse. Our expectation is to play finals. We set out a strategic plan at the start of the year for the next 4 years, and that plan hasn't been altered. So in answering your questions, we can still absolutely assess, the performance on and off the field, the performance of, our coaching group, our playing group, everyone across the club. And absolutely, you need to take into account the circumstances we've faced, but also how we've dealt with those challenges and circumstances.
With the questions that players have to face now, have you contemplated it as a club? Will you be sympathetic to the view of the players who don't feel they can hit the road for an extended period of time for family circumstances?
Yeah, you have to, Gerard. I mean, we have, again, with the guiding principles, focused on protecting our people. And as I said, every macro decision's had an impact on individuals, and individuals have different circumstances. So, we respect, the players' personal circumstances, and they'll make their, judgments and consultation, with our people, with their families and so forth. So absolutely, we respect our people and their right to make their call.
Is it so that the season has to go on as the AFL has to get its games away, and this is a tricky matrix? Is it reasonable to ask players to head out with no real certainty about how long they'll be away and the like?
Well, all those things will be, worked through. But as I said, look, as a club, and I guess from the top, Gerard, we, really want to embrace every challenge, including the challenge of hubs and where that might be and how long you might be away. That's the nature to actually get the games done and keep this show on the road. That's what we have to be prepared to do, and that's what we have to be prepared to embrace. And there will be issues, and as there are, to work through on that front. And I've got the greatest confidence in our leadership in the AFL to get that right.
Glen Bartlett is the president of Melbourne in the top office today. Is when this all grabbed hold, Glen, is how quickly were you able to assess the risk facing the club specifically?
Good question. We really acted quickly in setting up a structure and did a lot of work financially on the different scenarios. The hardest thing was the uncertainty. Were we going to have a season that wasn't going to go ahead? Were we going to have a season with no games? Were we going to have a season with games, no crowds? Were we going to have a mix? We initially assessed we were probably going to have somewhere between $8 to $10 million financial hole this year, which, Gerard, we managed to get back to $4.5 to $5 million, which is still a big number. However, we've got a very strong balance sheet. We're in a good position to respond. We've just launched our Proud to Belong, Proud to Give fundraising campaign. If we can raise $1 million by Christmas, and we're on our way, then we will not need to be an assisted club. We'll be a non-assisted club. We will not need to go to the AFL to borrow any money, which is really significant. We want to be a proud, independent, financially strong club. We've worked really hard over the last 4 years to reduce debt from 8.2 mil to 2 mil. We made a decision to exit gaming. We sold the Leoke hotel. So it's pretty significant. If we can raise $1 million by Christmas, we'll be an unassisted club. But the impact very quickly, those numbers, scary numbers, our exec, our people have been fantastic in the work and the decisions we've made to actually take cost out, go in some different directions, negotiate over some different arrangements. We've been well supported by our commercial partners, by the MCC, work with the AFL. So we're in a position where we can rebound from this quite strongly. To fill that hole, realistically, it might take us 2 to 3 years to completely fill that $5 million hole. Of course, we don't know yet, Gerard, what's going to happen next year, although we have, we do anticipate, obviously an impact from COVID-19 next year and probably the year after as well. But we did move quickly, and thank goodness for Zoom Jared. We've had thousands of Zoom conferences, it feels. I felt like an executive chairman, early on, in the first couple of months with a number of, obviously meetings and decisions we're making quickly, focused on those guiding principles to protect the ongoing viability of our football club, to protect our people, not to compromise our preparation. And as I said, we had half a dozen guiding principles that we've made decisions by, which I think have, on reflection, have held us in really good stead.
The notion of the vulnerable club, and obviously Jeff Kennett has made this especially pointed. So do you feel confident you're not in a position of being the vulnerable club? Is that why not being an assisted club is important to you?
Look, we've got a strong balance sheet, been around for 160 years. I mean, Jeff has a lot of good ideas and he's made a great contribution to this state and his club. I don't agree with him on this one. Richard Goyder wrote a very strong letter early on, 18 clubs in, 18 clubs out. I think you'll find most clubs in the AFL don't agree with this concept. If you need assistance from the AFL, and 7 years ago when I joined the club, we had to seek some assistance. The club had lost $3.1 million. There are strong KPIs put in place. You need to work closely with the AFL. It's a well-managed organisation. We've been around for 160 years. We're not talking about some shelf company or shelf companies. We're talking about organisations that are real part of the fabric of our community. Been around for 160 years, wrote the rules of the game. I think we'll be around for another 160 years plus, Gerard. So no, I don't feel that. Sometimes it's a bit of a distraction. I think, Gerard, probably the bigger issue is just before COVID-19 broke, we're having a conversation in the AFL with the club presidents about a potential 19th licence involving Tasmania. I think the bigger issue is, the AFL and the clubs, once we get through this period, looking at what's the optimum number of clubs for 2030, 2040. Is it 20 clubs? Is it 22 clubs? I think it needs to be, if you think about media rights and the fixture, adding in an extra licence doesn't make a lot of sense. I think it needs to be a bit like the Cracker Brothers. They come in pairs and there needs to be a decent run. Is 22 teams the optimum number, or is it 18? If it's 22 by 2040, map out a program to dominate the whole of Australia, and you might end up with a Tasmanian club, a Northern Territory, perhaps another one out of WRSA. But I certainly think the code is really well managed. We're in a strong place. This has been an unbelievable challenge. But I don't feel, as I said, we've been around 160 years. We've got a strong balance sheet. 50,000, 53,000, 25,000 over the next period of 2 to 3 years. It's not a small club.
No, it's not. Glenn, just give us a little insight. So the footy would have taken a lot of your time, and then you've got your real-world responsibilities. How were you able to balance those up during the months of acute crisis so this is notionally a volunteer job to be president of the footy club while you try to run your real-life responsibilities with your legal practice? Yeah,
well, certainly we're in the workplace, space, employment law, workplace training, workplace investigation. So that skill set certainly came in, pretty useful, I thought, early on. But look, it has been a real challenge. We've worked from home, and certainly, again, putting structures in place, having good people, sort of one day's rolled into the next. I haven't kept timesheets in terms of my football club time. It'd probably be frightening to do that, but very early on it was really intensive, and then I think we sort of got into a bit of a rhythm, Gerard, with meetings. It has been a juggle. Been working very long hours, sleep less, but on the positive, like even weekends have been very, very different. We have taken a decision until our members and supporters are back at games. There's no point me going. There's not a function. you can't go into the rooms because of the protocols after the game. So, we've just been very effective with the use of time. But it has been really challenging. It's been different. There's certainly been a lot of, legal work on in my space. The face-to-face training we do, Gerard, has been put on hold as such. But, yeah, and look, I'd say it's been challenging for all of us. I really feel for, the people that have been stood down or out of jobs. And I know we've launched our, Proud to Belong, Proud to Give fundraising campaign. I'd say to everyone, all Melbourne supporters, if you can, get on our website and please donate. But we understand it's difficult and challenging times as well. And at times it's been a bit of a blur, just one day into the next, Gerard. But having great people in the footy club, Gary Pert, our exec, Josh Marnie, our coaches have been fantastic, all of our staff, the way they have embraced the challenge and, really doing more for less, really committed to the organisation.
Glenn, last week, Eddie Betts made a passionate stand on 360 against racism that he has faced every year of his journey. Neville Jetta in the same week faced that on social media. When you turn your legal background to this, have you had to think about, separate to the moral and the ethical side, is how this can be tackled?
Yeah, it's a really good question, Gerard. We have to stamp it out. I think we have to legally look at whatever we can do with these forums that allow fake identities to and platforms to make people accountable. We really need a system to make people accountable. It's just abhorrent, in terms of what Eddie and what Nev then faced last week. And I really feel strongly about this. One of our club values is unity. It's not a fight that Nev Jetta is alone on. We, as a club, as an industry, have to do everything possible to stamp this out. I'm thinking about, what laws could be made in terms of who perhaps we should speak to in that space in dealing with this. But absolutely, the forums that, allow fake identities need to really be looked at. We need a system where people are accountable. We still need some education, but we need some real accountability because we're in the 21st century. This is not a new issue. It has to be addressed. And I'd ask people, just think about before you post something, the impact on the individual, on their families. But no, we're all with Neville, stand right behind him. And I'm going to do everything in my power to sort of think about how this can be addressed. It just can't happen going forward.
Glenn, each week we finish the top office with the most basic question of all. Why do you do it? Why are you a president of Melbourne?
It's a really good question, Gerard. Look, from a young boy, for the best part of the last 50 years, I've loved the game. Luckily, I played at a young age. I started at East Perth at 15 years of age in the Colts under-19s and had 14 years there, interrupted by a short stint at West Coast, but just always loved the game. When I retired, I had roles in coaching, sports management, appeals board, tribunal, sort of every role you could think, just loved the game. And when I moved to Melbourne with the family 11 years ago, I guess it's to put back into the community. My four sons were at a school where the theme was men for others, and when the opportunity came up, I felt like I'd been training for it, and really to put something back. And the excitement of being part of, a challenge, at Melbourne, having won a flag for 55 years. I'd picked Melbourne as my team in 2010. I figured out you had to have a Melbourne team. My best mate was at North. Brian Cook coached me as a 18-year-old at Geelong, but I picked Melbourne as my team. Got involved in the club in 2010 and just really passionate. I was fascinated by the history, Norm Smith, Barassi, the MCC history, and the ultimate challenge to bring back the club's 13th flag and be involved in that. It's really been a privilege to be the 21st president of the Melbourne Football Club. But I love the game, love the people, love being part of a club and met so many great people across the industry, and really looking forward to the next journey in front of us, next 3 to 5 years, coming through COVID-19 stronger, Gerard, and seeking the ultimate prize and continuing to do the great work we do in the community as well as a footy club.
Glenn, good luck with it. Thanks for joining me in the top office.
No worries. Thanks, Gerard. All the best. Stay safe.